I remember a time in the not too distant past when 2D and 3D computer generated images were the scary new technology in the art world. And the most parroted criticism of this technology was that it didn't count as real art because the computer does all the work for you. Of course, this line of thought is no longer prominent as CGI has become the industry standard, and the laymen of the world have come to realize that drawing on a tablet or sculpting with a mouse require much of the same knowledge and expertise as their traditional counterparts. So now it's the 2020s, and AI art generators are the scary new technology, and once again there is a moral panic. Unlike last time, it's actually the laymen who are fully embracing this scary new technology. This time, the moral outrage is coming from professional artists. So what is it about these AI art generators that has roles reversed this time? Also, what exactly is the appeal of these art generators, and how are people using them? Are artists on the wrong side of history with this one? Will Stable Diffusion become the industry standard? All of this and more will be answered as we explore the ethical nightmares that are AI art generators. So, what makes the moral outrage against AI art generators any different from the outrage against CGI? I know it may seem similar when both cases are about computers doing all the work for you, but when that argument was used against CGI, it was built upon a misunderstanding of how that technology worked. CGI is not made by computers, it's made by artists using computers. When it comes to AI art generators, the whole appeal is that your computer will literally do all the work for you. No art skills needed. Now, I understand that there is a narrative being pushed by the pro-AI crowd that artists are on the defensive because they're scared of machines taking their jobs, which is a subject I will address later on, but in this case, I think artists are up in arms over something more immediately harmful. Artists aren't so much worried about their jobs being stolen as much as they're worried about their existing work being stolen. When you ask an AI to draw something in another artist's style, or to draw an artist's original character, have you ever stopped to think about how the AI is able to do that? How is the program able to draw like Yoshitaka Amano when you ask it to, instead of just pumping out some generic anime crap? Or how is the program able to differentiate Gargura from the millions of other blue-haired anime girls? Well, to put it simply, the AI has to be trained. A user will curate a selection of images to feed the AI, which the AI then analyzes and attempts to imitate. The process of imitating art is called generation. After the AI has generated a number of imitations, the generated art is then graded on how easily distinguished they are from real art. This is a process referred to as discrimination. Basically, in order for the AI to make good art, the generator has to learn how to trick the discriminator. And that is why this type of machine learning is called a generative adversarial network, or a GAN model. Stability AI's Stable Diffusion and OpenAI's DALL-E 2 utilize something called a diffusion-based learning model, which was designed to overcome a shortcoming of the GAN model. GAN models are known to suffer from mode collapsing, which is when there is a lack of diversity among the generated images. Diffusion models overcome this by adding a step to the adversarial sequence. The AI obscures the image with Gaussian noise and then attempts to denoise it. Basically, the AI intentionally ruins its own art and then attempts to repaint it from memory, thus adding some diversity to the output. Okay, so these AIs need to be fed art to be able to generate art, and when you have a really extensive art generator like DALL-E 2 or Stable Diffusion, you're going to need to train your AI with an incredibly varied and diverse set of drawings, paintings, and photos. In an attempt to be transparent, Stability AI released the dataset used to train Stable Diffusion. All 2.3 billion images. As it turned out, a lot of artists were perusing this dataset, and they discovered that their art was used without their knowledge. Now, it would be one thing if all of this art was in the public domain, or if all of the artists were dead. I'm not sure if that's better. But a large number of these artists are still alive, and were otherwise unaware that hundreds to thousands of their artwork had been stolen to train this AI. And I am choosing to say stolen because these people have not been financially compensated for the usage of their work. And many of these people are outspokenly critical of these art generators, so it's unlikely that they would consent had they even been asked in the first place. By the way, if any artist watching this video has any reason to believe that their art has been used to train Stable Diffusion, I encourage you to use this browser that Baio and Simon Willison made specifically to search through this dataset. The browser will be linked in the description below. That being said, if your art was used to train this AI, there isn't really anything you can do about it. As far as I can tell, none of these artists were asked by Stability AI to participate in their experiment, and there doesn't seem to be any way to opt out. I have a funny feeling that nothing short of a lawsuit will prevent artists from being taken advantage of by AI developers, which is most likely what incentivized OpenAI to prevent DALL-E 2 from generating characters whose copyright are held by particularly litigious companies. DALL-E 2 may not be able to draw Mickey Mouse, but that doesn't mean it wasn't trained with stolen art. OpenAI hasn't been as transparent as Stability AI, but they did release a risk and limitations document which claims that DALL-E 2 is trained with images drawn from a combination of publicly available sources and sources that they licensed. But I feel like the words publicly available sources are a little too vague. They could mean that they only used images in the public domain, or they could mean that they ripped images straight from Twitter, a publicly available platform. These actions are so anti-artist that I actually did a quick Google search to see if OpenAI was involved with OpenSea, an NFT marketplace. And it isn't, but I did discover that OpenAI was co-founded by Elon Musk. So now you know who to sue. It's actually pretty funny how much this year's AI craze reminds me of last year's NFT craze. I mean, if I had a nickel for every time tech pros did something to supposedly help artists, but ended up stealing their work and making the art community a much shittier place, I'd have 2 nickels. Which isn't a lot, but it's upsetting that it happened twice. Just to play devil's advocate, the main argument against these outraged artists is they wouldn't be so offended if a human artist used their work as learning materials, so it shouldn't be so bad when an AI artist does it. And it is true that most artists start out by imitating or outright copying their influences. Hirohiko Araki imitated Tetsuo Hara, Katsuhiro Otomo imitated Osamu Tezuka, and I have straight up copied Dave Mazzucchelli on numerous occasions to figure out how he does it. But it's such a false equivalency to compare tech companies stealing people's art to art students using their inspiration's work as reference. The thing about human artists is that we grow out of our periods of imitation and apply what we've learned to art that we can call our own. AI artists don't do that. AI artists learn how to copy other artists for the sole purpose of being able to copy those artists. And that's supposed to be the appeal of art generators. Isn't it? Stable Diffusion is a free, open-source program with a permissive license which allows commercial services to utilize their AI model. One such service is a pay-to-use website called Night Cafe. When you use Night Cafe, they literally have a pop-up menu that lists a bunch of popular artists and straight up encourages you to generate something in that artist style. Services like Night Cafe have a simple business plan. Don't pay artists outrageous commission prices, pay us a small fee to make an AI-generated interpretation of what a commission from the artist could look like. I believe that art generation services are attempting to appeal to a low-key anti-artist sentiment that has been present on social media for a long time. Any artist with a sizable social media presence can corroborate the existence of two particular anti-artist mindsets that are prominent online. The first is the mindset of the entitled commissioner. This is someone who requests the creation of custom original art, but will beg artists to do it for free or to try and haggle a discounted price. The second is the mindset that once something is posted on the internet, it now belongs to the internet. Basically the belief that artists hold no rights over their own creations. AI art services make it evident enough how they want to be used to circumvent paying artists, but I think the best way to understand what is so appealing about AI technology is to observe the community that grows around it. I am going to spend the following paragraphs highlighting statements and arguments made by actual pro-AI Redditors instead of arguing against generalized statements and strawman arguments, because sometimes the best way to play devil's advocate is to let the devils represent themselves. I would like to specify that these are not comments I cherry-picked to make the pro-AI crowd look bad. The comments I have chosen were picked because they went viral or because they had the most upvotes. If anyone watching this video feels that I am being unfair or intentionally misrepresenting the AI art community, feel free to explain yourselves in the comments below. I'd like to begin by highlighting this comment because it starts with an actual true statement. You cannot copyright an art style. According to the Legal Artist blog, copyright law protects finished works of art. It does not protect things like facts, ideas, procedures, or an artist's style, no matter how distinct. There have been many court cases that set the precedent of art styles not falling under copyright protection. One such case is Dave Grossman Designs v. Borton, in which the court ruled that the law of copyright is clear that only specific expressions of an idea may be copyrighted. For example, Picasso may be entitled to a copyright on his portrait of 3 women painted in his Cubist motif. However, any artist may paint a picture of any subject in the Cubist motif, including a portrait of 3 women, and not violate Picasso's copyright so long as the second artist does not substantially copy Picasso's specific expression of his idea. To put it simply, you can copy an artist's style and not violate copyright law, but if you directly copy an artist's work and try to pass it off as your own, then you are liable for copyright infringement. Now, this court case set the precedent for copyright infringement in the realm of traditional art, but this Redditor is trying to use this ruling in defense of AI-generated artwork, and I don't think their reasoning holds water here. Just to refresh your memory, in order for an AI to generate art in a particular artist's style, the AI needs to be trained with a corpus of that artist's existing work. The argument can be made that AI art generators don't draw new artwork as much as they analyze patterns of existing art and photobash them together to generate something new. In this sense, you can argue that when art generators are used to copy an art style, they're actually creating something that is derivative of an artist's existing work, and therefore liable for copyright infringement. That being said, the ruling is still out on these art generators, so we're just going to have to wait for the inevitable AI lawsuit to determine what does or does not infringe on the rights of an artist. The next part of this particular comment that I would like to dissect is the notion that now people can continue enjoying Kim's work. Hell, now everyone can basically get commissions from him for completely free. For the sake of context, I should explain that this comment was posted in a thread on the Stable Diffusion subreddit, where Redditors were arguing over the morality of generating art in the style of recently deceased artist Kim Jong-gi. This Redditor brought up a popular pro-art generator selling point, that AI allows you to get commissions from your favorite artists for completely free. This selling point is the absolute worst because it's not only dishonest, it also fundamentally misunderstands why an individual would even commission their favorite artists. First of all, AI art generators do not allow you to get commissions for free. It's only a commission if the artist actually draws it. And this Redditor understands that because they qualify their outrageous statement by saying it's basically the same, but that's not true either. I will compliment these art generators by admitting that they've mastered generating the vibes of an artist's style, but they fail to generate new art in an existing style the same way a human artist could. All these AI are good for is generating passing resemblances to real art, which is something I would never pay for. I would, on the other hand, 100% pay for custom art from any of my favorite artists. The thing that the pro AI crowd seems to not understand is that most people don't look at artists as a service or as a means to an end. When an individual commissions their favorite artist for custom art, it's done with a sense of respect and admiration, which is something you forego when you use AI to circumvent the commission process. Earlier in this essay, I compared AI companies to NFT companies, and I stand by that statement, but it's comments like the one I'm currently tearing apart that make the NFT community look like saints. I mean, despite NFTs ultimately being used to scam people, they at least created a mainstream discussion about owning original art and paying artists fairly. So far, the AI community seems to be villainizing what they call manual artists and arguing that the ability to draw is elitist and that art generators exist to level the playing field. Alright. The ability to draw is not elitist, and it's not a natural talent. Aaron Hansen did not come out the pussy drawing fucking Mozart, he taught himself how to draw. I am teaching myself how to draw, and you could teach yourself how to draw too, but you need to understand that drawing is not something you can sit down and be instantly good at. The ability to draw, or paint, or take photos are skills that artists spend their entire lives learning to hone because there is no such thing as perfection. Look at whichever artist you consider to be a master of their craft, and understand that they are still learning. Those years of experience and studying are what justify artists' supposedly outrageous commission prices. The best way to illustrate what art skills are truly worth actually comes from an old viral art challenge. A few years ago, there was a viral trend of artists doing 3 of the same sketches but with 3 different time constraints. For example, a 1-minute sketch versus a 10-minute sketch versus a 1-hour sketch. This challenge visualizes the fact that when you hire an artist, you're not just paying for a finished product, you're paying for someone's expertise, experience, and ability to navigate difficult situations such as time constraints. An artist's commission price doesn't quantify how well they draw, it values their expertise and compensates for the time spent. After all, time is crucial to the artistic process, but it's also crucial to an artist's health. Okay, by the way, not to go on too much of a tangent, but this Redditor that I've been talking about has apparently been posing their AI art as manual art in order to scam potential art commissions. They spend so much time criticizing real artists for supposedly raking customers over the coals with their prices, yet they charge people around $50 for something that anyone could do themselves for free. The irony would be delicious if it wasn't so infuriating. Okay, my biggest takeaway from observing the AI art community is when AI users aren't actively demonizing artists, they're encouraging society to disregard corporations trampling on the rights of individual civilians. The least insane pro-AI arguments amount to posturing the art community as old fogies who are stuck in their ways and resistant to its technology that will supposedly make all of our lives easier. As an artist, I am very much in favor of automating jobs that are hazardous to human workers, or automation for the sake of convenience, like self-checkout kiosks. However, I fail to see how these art generators would improve my life as an artist, let alone how they would even function in a professional scenario. it's time to finally move on to the big question that's in the back of everyone's mind. Will AI art generators replace human artists? The answer is no. Or at least not in any way that's as impactful or as scary as people want to believe. The problem with the AI discourse is that people will see an AI-generated image that looks kinda cool, and they'll immediately decree that human artists' days are numbered and that we should all start looking for real jobs now. In reality, art generators have many hurdles to overcome before they would even be capable of replacing human artists, let alone compete with human artists. And I am taking into consideration that a piece of AI-generated art has already won first prize in a human art competition. In fact, that piece of AI art is the best place to start when talking about the creative shortcomings of AI art generators. When you examine this painting, titled Théâtre d'Opéra Spatial, or Space Opera Theater, your imagination truly runs wild in an attempt to decipher the imagery presented. When I first saw this piece, I hadn't seen its title, so I interpreted it to be an interior shot of a castle. I imagined the figure in white to be a princess observing her kingdom, which I thought to be barely visible through what I interpreted to be a circular window. The figures in orange I interpreted to be the servants of the figure in white, but now I guess they're supposed to be opera-goers wearing ball gowns. When you approach this painting under the assumption that it was man-made, you really do appreciate all of the minute details, which you can only assume were rendered by hand with the utmost of care. However, when you come to the realization that an AI rendered this image in a few seconds to a minute, what once seemed to be a brilliant piece of abstract art reveals itself to be a machine's failure to understand basic artistic principles. Is this lady in orange interacting with an object in the midground, or is this supposed to be a part of the background architecture? It's hard to tell because the artist failed to establish a consistent perspective on whatever these shapes are supposed to be. Take a look at any of this AI's attempts at developing a consistent pattern, and then follow those patterns in any direction. They all either trail off into mushy brushstrokes or get consumed by this digital artifacting. I have many questions about the artistic intent behind this painting, but to be honest, they can all be asked with a single, simple question. What is this a painting of? The piece is titled Space Opera Theater, so are we looking at the lobby of a theater? The point of view is very confusing. Is this supposed to be an audience watching a space opera in the background, or are the people in the foreground on stage performing the space opera to whatever this orb is? The closer you examine this piece, the more incomprehensible it becomes, and you start to realize that it was generated with a distinct lack of artistic intent. To explain what I mean, I have to show you the work of artist Paolo Girardi. At first glance, you may suspect his work to be AI generated. However, these are all meticulous oil paintings. Despite a few superficial similarities, a close comparison between Girardi's paintings and AI images reveals a tangible humanity to his paintings that AIs cannot replicate. Girardi's paintings are busy, but not noisy. They are fluid, but not mushy. They are chaotic, but not incomprehensible. If you closely examine one of Girardi's paintings, you can spot hundreds of hand-drawn details, such as these two demons going at it doggy style. This is what I mean by a lack of artistic intent in AI art. I can look at any of Paolo's paintings and understand the general concept of the painting purely through sight reading. However, if I did have a question, I could ask him and he could answer me if he wanted to. When it comes to AI artists, there is no one capable of answering my questions. If we consider the person who prompted the AI to generate this image to be the artist, I could ask them any of my numerous questions about the thought process behind designing this image, and they wouldn't be able to answer any of them because they did not design this image. If we consider the AI to be the artist, which I'm inclined to do, then there is no reason to even vocalize my opinions on the art, because the AI can't fucking talk. The art community has taken to labeling AI artists as microwave artists because using an art generator and calling yourself an artist is like microwaving ravioli and calling yourself a chef. When you use an art generator, you have very little control over what the generated art ends up looking like. This lack of control over your outputs is one of the major reasons why I can't imagine art generators replacing human artists in any meaningful way. Take a look at these images of Naruto that I generated with Stable Diffusion. Yeah, they look cool, and some of them are rather convincing at first glance, but upon closer inspection, they're all horribly off-model. The AI can't even remember that Naruto has 3 whiskers, let alone the fact that they're supposed to be symmetrical. The problem is that these AIs are pretty good at recognizing patterns, but they're absolutely horrible at generating them. I mean, the symbol of the Hidden Leaf Village is simple enough that elementary schoolers can draw it in their notebooks, but it's apparently too complex for this AI to handle. I can't imagine any major studio laying off their human artists in favor of AI, but even if a company wanted to produce media using an AI art generator, they would have to keep human artists on staff out of necessity in order to mitigate the numerous errors that come with AI-generated art. It seems like most people don't understand the relationship AI artists have with human artists, and that is absolutely where all of this fear-mongering is coming from. Art generators are not some sort of apex predator coming to hunt human artists into extinction. Art generators are parasites. AIs cannot create art on their own. They rely on centuries worth of human accomplishments in order to generate anything at all. And even then, art generators fail to learn anything from the amazing art that they have been trained with because they lack the human intuition to properly interpret it. That is why AIs make human hands look like a Lovecraftian nightmare. That is why AIs interpret photos of salmon swimming upstream as being salmon fillets. That lack of human intuition is why the Lensa app has been caught generating nude photos of children. No company with an iota of respect is going to behold themselves to the chaos of whether or not an art generator will be able to comprehend a prompt. It will always be safer to rely on human artists, even if they do ask for outrageous things such as being paid fairly for their work. Once again, we have reached the part of the thesis where I throw the AI community a bone and explain that not everyone thinks that art generators exist to put human artists out of a job. A very popular argument in favor of AI is that it could be a useful tool in generating concept art so artists don't have to. The idea, I guess, is that coming up with ideas is apparently really hard or a big waste of time for artists, and art generators solve that problem by generating ideas for free. This way of thinking exposes a major difference between manual artists and AI artists. This may be presumptuous of me, but most artists would tell you that the hard part of making art is not coming up with ideas, it's the execution of those ideas where the challenge presents itself. Using AI to circumvent this challenge completely misses what makes art appealing to artists. AI artists consider every step of the artistic process to be monotonous and painful and not worth trying if they're not perfect the first time. I have been teaching myself how to draw for the past 4 years, and yeah, practicing is monotonous and sometimes painful, but there is no better feeling than looking back at your own work and seeing tangible evidence of your own self-improvement. For the sake of this video, I've experimented with art generators, and I didn't get anything close to the feelings I get when one of my drawings turns out the way I imagined it. Typing some words and pressing enter is not at all comparable to spending hours of physical labor on a piece of art that turned out just as I had hoped. Let's put it this way. If you're hungry and you want something quick, you open a can of SpaghettiOs. If you want something substantial and rewarding, you bust out ingredients and make something from scratch. Unfortunately, this is something that microwave artists could never understand. During the course of writing this essay, I wouldn't so much say that I've attempted to convey a message as much as I've been wrestling with my own opinions on AI. I never intended to spend almost 3 months on writing this thesis, but I'm glad I did because the discourse surrounding these art generators has developed so much since I started writing in October, and as a result, my stance on this AI has shifted greatly. The first draft of this essay was actually very much in favor of art generators, with my major criticism being the fact that they were trained using stolen art. The moment my opinions changed on art generators was the moment I started looking into the AI art community. Thousands of people using every excuse they could to not only justify that art theft, but also paint the victims of that theft as being fools for posting their art on the internet. Or worse, painting artists as the real villains for gatekeeping art from the artistically disabled? I've done my best to make this video as informative as possible. I explained the technology behind AI learning models as simply as I could, and I injected some reality into the belief that art generators will replace human artists. But I can't help but feel like there is still going to be so much confusion and uncertainty when it comes to the future of the art community in this post-AI world. I don't think that I can sit here and say that things are going to get better, but if it helps, I do have a call to action. AI developers like Stability AI and OpenAI need to be held accountable, and this can only be achieved through a lawsuit. Financial compensation would be the dream outcome of one of these lawsuits. However, not all dreams can become a reality, so at the very least, a lawsuit should produce laws to protect artists who do not consent to having their art used in an AI dataset. I've been talking a lot about how art generators take advantage of artists and how artists' rights need to be protected, but artists aren't the only people being affected by AI. Recently, a face app called Lensa AI gained notoriety for its ability to turn people's selfies into anime, cartoons, and generally prettier versions of themselves. Now, this app has 2 rules that it doesn't enforce at all: no nudity and no minors. As you would expect, people broke these rules and uploaded their nudes and photos of children, respectively. What you might not expect are confirmed reports of women uploading safe-for-work selfies and receiving AI-generated nudes of themselves. The reason Lensa AI specifies no nudes and no minors is because the act of uploading photos to the app grants Lensa a perpetual, irrevocable, non-exclusive, royalty-free, worldwide, fully paid, transferable, sub-licensable license to use, reproduce, modify, distribute, create derivative works of your user content without any additional compensation to you. Basically, Lensa doesn't own the rights to your photos, they're just legally allowed to do whatever they want with them. This includes submitting your photos to their AI dataset, which is why the app has been caught generating nudes of women and children. When deepfakes or even Photoshop were invented, everyone was thrown into a panic over the possibility of their face being transplanted onto compromising footage, yet Lensa AI presents itself as a fun way to spruce up your profile, and people will submit their own compromising photos just to see what they would look like if they were an anime character. Lensa hid their shady business practices in their terms of service because they knew nobody would knowingly consent to having their face, nudes, and children's faces entered into an AI dataset. This is the importance of educating yourself about AI. Thanks for watching my video. If you want to see more, then subscribe, and there are more videos like this on my channel. If you liked it, then give it a like, and if you didn't like it, then give it a dislike. Negative engagement counts as positive engagement in the eyes of YouTube, so I don't care. Thanks for watching.